Hi, I'm Vicky. I'm glad you're here. These watercolour trees went together very quickly with the help of some masking and some simple painting. I'm using Canson XL watercolour. I've cut my piece to 8.5 inches by 6.5 inches and scored it in half. Now I'm using a stamp from the Jolly Christmas stamp set. You can use any Christmas greetings on this, or if you didn't have stamps, you could handwrite the greeting inside. I'm using VersaFine Onyx Black ink, which works very well for fine details and is permanent ink once dry. Because this is watercolour paper, I've put it into my stamping platform and I'm going to ink it up twice. I like to use a tissue to rub across the top of the platform so I get a good impression. And if there are any small little places that didn't quite stamp, you can always bring in an ultra fine black Sharpie and just clean that up. Now I'm going to let that dry completely. And I've actually used my heat gun to speed up the process. Now I'm just going to start drawing the tree shape. I'm using part of the watercolour paper that I cut down to make the card. And I want to fit 3 trees across the front of my card. So when I've got about the right size tree, I'm going to darken the outlines and I'm going to bring in some tracing paper. Or you could use baking paper from the kitchen. I'm going to trace the shape and just check that it's going to fit. And I'm going to fold my paper in half and choose the side of the tree that I like the best, and I'm going to cut along that side, and this will give me a completely symmetrical triangle. Now it's a bit fat at the base, so I'm going to bring the scissors back in and just trim away a little bit more from the sides so that it's not quite as fat a tree. Now I've got a shape that I like, and I'm going to put some glue dots on each of the corners. So these are repositionable, and it's going to help me find a place for the tree on the card to start masking off with some washi tape. If you didn't have washi tape, you could use masking tape or painter's tape for this. And now I'm going to remove the centre and reposition it on the right hand side and do the same. And I'm going to repeat that process on the scrap piece. I've already prepped my watercolour palette by spritzing it with some water to wake up the paints. I'm going to be using my Daniel Smith paints, the 24 half pan set, but you could use any watercolour paints for this. And once that piece is removed, we can start with the painting. I'm burnishing inside the tape just to make sure the paint won't run. Here's my Daniel Smith palette, and I'm looking for transparent colours for this technique. So the transparent colours have a circle inside them. So Quin Gold is transparent, alizarin crimson, Quin rose, ultramarine blue, phthalo blue green shade, phthalo green blue shade, sap green, yellow ochre, and quinacridone burnt orange are all transparent colours. So I'm going to make a swatch of all of those colours just very quickly on a scrap piece of paper, just so that I can get a feel for how they might play together. And I've written the names down there just for my reference, but you don't need to do that. I don't really want to use the reds, they're a little bit bold, or the pinks. And I can see how that phthalo green has walked into the other colours, so I'm going to be aware that that's quite a strong colour and be careful when I use it. The technique here is very simple. You make your strokes of bold colour across the trees, and I'm working on 3 at a time, and rinse your brush and change colour. Now I'm going into quinacridone burnt orange. And I have quite a bit of water in my brush, but it's not so watery that the paint will start bleeding into the other colours. You want this to be more transparency. I'm not drying the painting between adding colours. I'm just being very quick with a light touch, being aware that that phthalo green is something I need to use sparingly. Now I'm going to go to the yellow ochre, and you can also see me dabbing my brush off on my towel so that it's not too watery. Now a little bit of that phthalo green came out beyond the washi tape, and I'm going to fix that in a moment. I didn't notice it at the time that I painted it, but as I'm putting the layers on, I can see that the two trees on the front of the card, there's a little bit of colour that's come past the borders. So if that happens to you, fix it right away before the colours dry. And you can see how transparent these colours become. So I just noticed my mistake there. So I'm bringing in a dry brush and also my magic eraser. I've moistened it by damping it in some water and then squeezing out the water and just dabbing at it. I'm not scrubbing, I'm just dabbing. Magic erasers are great for this. And as long as your paint hasn't dried, you'll usually have some good results removing anything like that. Now for some quinacridone gold. And just a very light touch, and anywhere I can see some white background, I'm going to just very lightly touch the brush to that. I'm using a Princeton snap brush, size 12, and it works beautifully. It's a round brush. It's perfect for this application. Now I'm just checking to see if there are still any white lines, and I'm going to dab some phthalo green into each of the three corners of the tree so that when I take the tape off, there will be a very definite outline of the triangle shape. Now I've let the painting dry, I've taken it outside, I've also hit it with the heat gun, and it does take quite a little while to dry, so do not do this until it is completely dry. You can tell by touching your paper, and if it feels cold, it's not dry. You need to give it a little bit longer. So be quite patient with that. A heat gun does help, but I did need to put it outside as well to speed up the process. I'm very carefully removing the tape, and a tiny little bit caught on the top there, but that's nothing. I can just peel that away with my finger. It was just a very small amount. I'm using a bone folder to crease the card, or you could use the handle of some scissors if you didn't have a bone folder. And I want to preserve a white outline around this tree. I'm just going to cut an 1/8 of an inch white edge with some scissors. It's a very simple cut because it's all straight lines. Now I have these adhesive foam pieces, and I'm going to place one at each of the points and one in the centre of the tree, and this is how I'm going to attach this panel to the front of the card. I'm just pressing in the centre to release the contact paper, and this makes it easy to peel it away. And I'm going to position this on the front of the card, slightly lower than the other trees, so it looks like it's sitting forward, which in fact it is. And there it is finished. I just love how this turned out. I'm really happy with it. If you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel, consider doing so you won't miss any more watercolour videos. Thanks so much. I'll see you again next time.